unmute? Okay, I hate interrupting this great fellowship, but it's a couple minutes after, so it's time to get started. I probably should have let you keep talking because I got up at 6 o'clock this morning to go over my lesson, and I realized last week I had a full 2 pages. This week I got about 1 3/4 of pages, so you're going to have to talk a lot today. So please share your thoughts during class today. We're going to be talking about Noah today, and just as a reminder, what we're talking about here is the promises of God. And last week I shared the goals for the class. I'll probably be telling you those every class. The first goal is understanding that faith is more than belief. Realizing that those God used that we read about in the Bible were flawed people. And knowing that God, when He does planning, it's not for next week, next year. It's usually very long term. And accepting that God is always faithful to His promises. So those are the goals of the class. And today we're going to be, as I said, we're going to be studying about Noah. So if you could, just turn your Bible to Genesis. We'll be starting in Genesis chapter 6. Okay, I'm going to start reading in verse 5. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The Lord was grieved that He had made man on earth, and His heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said, I will wipe out mankind whom I have created from the face of the earth, men and animals and creatures that move along the ground, and the birds of the air, for I am grieved that I have made them. I think that this is one of the saddest scriptures in all the Bible. That God was sad, that He was grieved that He had made mankind. And so He's going to destroy them. Do you think things are bad today? Most of us in here are over 20. Have you ever known anybody that was, say, over 40 years old that didn't say, wow, I can't believe how bad things have gotten? I mean, we all do. I think in every generation throughout history, people have said things are so much worse now than they were when I was young. I think that's just how we see things. Partly maybe just because things are different than they were, but it's hard to believe that they're not worse today than they were 67 years ago when I was born. I mean, there's just so much going on. It's just hard to believe that it's not worse.
We hear about it on the news all the time.
Yeah, we hear about it on the news. But my point in this is, yeah, things are bad. They must have really, really been bad at this time. Really, really bad. Later on, we're going to be talking a little bit about, when we get into Abraham, we're going to be talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. And, you know, things were really, really bad there. But they had to be really bad here for God to say that he was grieved in his heart that he had made man and that he's going to destroy it. And verse 8, I stopped at verse 7. In verse 8 it says, "But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord." So in all the earth, all the people that existed on the earth, there was only one man that God saw as being a righteous man. Only one, Noah. Okay, let's look at Genesis. Somebody read Genesis 2, 5 through 6.
No plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up. For Jehovah God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground.
Okay, so it hadn't rained. I was talking to Jasper earlier, and he said he thinks it hadn't rained ever either because his ponds are getting really, really low. So we kind of been in a drought, but it had never, ever rained. So how did trees grow? How did the grass grow? How did that happen? Came up. We're going to see later on that there's water underneath the ground, right? Anybody get their water from a well?
We all do.
Huh?
We all do. It just comes to the city to get it.
Well, that's not technically a
Yeah,
well.
my grandparents had a well out there, and I remember they had drawn water from that. I remember big long thing.
You remember the big long buckets?
And then they let it out with
The chain. Yeah, there was this, for you young people, they had this, they called it a bucket, but it was a pipe,
like a big long tube.
big long tube. They lowered it down into the well, and they let it fill up with water. They raised it up, and it had a little lever on top. You lifted that, and the water came out the bottom of the thing. You haven't?
Yeah, now I have a regular old bucket. And I remember at the most recent of when they sold the big farm and got the 5 acres, the well, it was so, you could look down and you see the stream flow. It wasn't more than 15 big days.
Oh yeah, and you know, so the wells I remember, you know, the hole was not very big, but when they really back a long time ago, the wells were really big. People could fall in them. You know. So that's enough on wells. But anyway, there is water under the earth. But it hadn't rained. So God tells Noah he's going to bring rain on the earth and destroy mankind. How could Noah believe that?
So evidently no one when he preached it believed it was going to happen.
Yeah, because they never seen rain, so
It had never rained. What are you talking about? It's going,
What's wrong?
what is rain?
He's a righteous man, that's why.
What is a flood?
A lot of rain.
So he tells Noah to build an ark, and he made him a promise that there was going to be a flood. And so Noah starts building the ark. Can you imagine the people walking by as Noah's building this boat? I mean, they thought he was out of his mind. They thought he was just crazy. How many people have been to the Ark encounter? What was your first thought when you saw that thing sitting back there?
It was a mess. I mean, it was just a big ruckus.
Where'd they find that much wood in Israel?
It,
Wow.
it is unbelievably big and fascinating. If you haven't been to the Ark encounter, I would go. Yes, Paul.
Do you watch the films that they have in each year? Because the news reporter is scoffing at him and talking about him building this boat a long way from water up on top on high ridge.
Yeah. I mean, I just I can't even imagine the ridicule that Noah experienced and how hard that was to stay the course,
For 120 years.
to keep your faith. You know, I heard that the other day. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Anyway, I don't remember that from the Ark encounter. Maybe that's what they said, but we're going to talk about it.
You can understand why
What
it
I-
took so long. You can understand why it took so long because it was so big.
Yes.
Well, did he hire some help maybe besides just him and his sons?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't tell us that. I don't know. Let's read. Yes.
I've always wondered, because I know my children probably did this, what in the world is Dad doing? He wants us to go out here in the middle of the desert and build a boat. This crazy old man is our father. Think about that for a minute. If you're a child, if you're one of his sons, you have to live with the fact that your dad is crazy. Now, that's a burden that some of us have had to bear for a long time.
Yeah. I was going to say, my kids tell me that all the time.
And I would hope that the children had some faith too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Hebrews 11:7, and right there, I think is the indication about why Noah did what he did. But think about it, I'll read it. It says, by faith, Noah, being warned of God, of things not seen as yet, moved with fear. Makes sense of godly fear. Think about it. All these people doing whatever they're doing. And God sees this man. It's not that God spoke to Noah every day. God chose at some point in time, let me interact with Noah. Now, if you were Noah, God spoke to you the first time, that'd be godly fear involved. And then that also means, hey, I've got faith in what you're telling me. You've chosen me, you're talking to me, and you're telling me, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I want you to do. Number one, godly fear, yeah, but faith, you've chosen me. I believe I can maintain my godly fear, do what you ask.
Yeah, I mean, God spoke to men in the Old Testament, right? So, and this gets back to my goal about faith. Faith is more than belief. If God came and spoke to you and you heard him, would it be hard to believe that he existed?
He doesn't show a burning bush. He doesn't show how he recognized God. God just spoke to Moses.
Yeah, so certainly he believed that God existed, right? But he went beyond just believing that God existed. His faith was in the promise. His faith was in what God told him and the covenant that we're getting ready to read about. That's really important. And that, I mean, there's a method to my madness in this class. There's a reason we're talking about these Old Testament, and we will get to Hebrews eventually. But there's a reason we're talking about these Old Testament promises. And I want you to understand clearly that we need more than just believing that God existed. We have to be like Noah and believe in the promises and have faith in the promises that God has made to us. Okay, just as Noah did. Let's look at chapter 6. Somebody read chapter 6, 17 through 22.
And behold, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh, which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of everything of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after its kind. 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. Is that good? Or?
Yeah. So, God makes this covenant with Noah that he's to build this ark, that through God's promise, Noah and his family and the animals of some of the animals of the earth will be saved. Somebody tell me how many animals of each kind were brought on the ark?
They had more of something to sacrifice.
To eat.
Their cattle or something they had more of.
Clean ones are 7.
There were 7.
The unclean.
Unclean, 2. And then, of course, food. They needed to have food. So God establishes a covenant to save his family, to save the animals, the birds. And Noah did all that God commanded. Now, somebody read Genesis 5:32.
And Noah, after was 500 years old, he fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Okay, so he is 500 years old. Then God makes this promise. Noah starts building the ark. He does it to God's specifications. God gave him very specific specifications for this ark. And now let's read Genesis 7. And let's read 7, 1 through 12, somebody.
Before we did that, I was going to show you where it might be calculated as 100 years, because in chapter 7, verse 11, since you just read how old he was.
Are you going to steal my...
Oh, are you going to get back? I thought you couldn't find it. Never mind. No, I'll let you do it. No, you can do it.
I'm sorry, I didn't tell my wife what all I was going to talk about today. All right. So, but we will get to that in just a second. All right. So somebody read chapter 7, verses 1 through 12. You don't have, we can split it. Somebody read 1 through 6, and then somebody can read 6 through 12, or 7 through 12.
Then the Lord said to Noah, "Enter the ark, you and all your household, for you alone have seen to be righteous before me in this matter. Ye shall take with you of every Noah had 600 years old when the flood of the water came upon the earth.
And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds, and of all creatures that moved along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark as God had commanded Noah. After 7 days, the flood waters came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and the rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights.
Okay, so a couple of, I have a question here. So it says 7 clean animals.
7 pairs.
Is that 7 or 14? That was my question.
7 pairs.
So it's 14.
14, no, seven male, 7 female.
Yeah, so it's 14. So, anyway, I just thought that was, I just wanted to make that point.
But the unclean only got a male and a female.
Yes, yes.
Because they were those sacrifices.
I don't know why. I
Probably wouldn't eat them, or probably wouldn't sacrifice them.
yeah. So, and then it says it was, Noah was 600 years old. So this is where I get a little confused, because I've heard 120 years, okay? So Noah was 500 years old when he had when he had his 3 children, right? Now we really don't know exactly what that means. We don't know if that means they were grown then or they weren't grown then or whatever. Yes?
Yeah, John, I was going to just clarify the 120 versus 100 as I understand it. If you look at Genesis 6:3, when God first starts talking to Noah, he says, I'll strive with him for 120 years. And then the 100 is ark building. So that's one way. There's a couple ways you can reconcile those numbers, but that's one way.
Okay. So, look, I'm just going through the logic. Okay, so if Noah had 3 sons at 500, he's 600 when the flood waters came.
So they're 100 years old?
So that's 100 years. So depending on how old his children were when Noah was 500, let's say they were, the last one was born when he was 500. They all have wives. So they've got to be of some age, right? So if you say they were 20 years after Noah turned 500, then it took 80 years to build the ark. Is everybody following my logic there?
Okay, Don, it's, I'm reading the ESV, 532 says, after Noah was 500 years old, he fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So this was done after he was 500 years old.
Okay.
So they're going to be less than 100 when they enter the ark.
Yeah, and
they'll have wives
and
at
they'll-
that time.
And they'll have wives.
At that
So,
time when they enter the ark.
so I'm back to my original, where I was originally, and what I told my wife. We don't really know exactly how long it took to build the ark. We know that it somewhere 100 years or less, right?
Well, I mean, these, unless we assume Noah built it all by himself, Shem, Ham, and Japheth had to be of some age to be able to help build
Yeah.
between the 500 and 600 years of age for Noah.
So can we all just agree that we don't really know exactly the number of years, but it took a long time?
Well, I think we can agree, why does it really matter?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter one bit. If it mattered, I guess that's right.
It matters that they did it.
They did
obeyed
it.
God, and they had the faith to do that.
Okay, so the floodwaters are coming, and it rains for 40 days and 40 nights. Did it just rain?
No,
What else happened?
Came to the earth.
water under the ground.
Water under the ground came up. And it covered the mountains. And how long did the rain cover the earth? How?
375 days.
Well, so let's look at Genesis 8. Yes, I mean, totally. I mean, there was water on the earth for 300 and what? 75 days. All right, but it began to recede. So let's look at chapter 8, and we're gonna read the whole chapter 8. So I'll start, and you guys can follow when I stop. Just somebody start. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark. And he sent the wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the water had gone down, and on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month. On the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground, but the dove could find no place to set its feet because there was water all over the surface of the earth. So it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there was in its beak a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again, but this time it did not return to him. So if somebody start reading there.
In the 601st year, in the first month, in the first day of the month, the waters were dried from all the earth. Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. In the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, "Go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you, and bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and let them swarm on the earth, and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him, every beast and every creeping thing and every bird and everything that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark.
And Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all of the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, and said to his Lord, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood, and never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. For as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, will never cease."
Okay, so, we're going to talk about some nerdy things here that only I would be thinking about. So, as Janice points out, it doesn't really matter. I just think it's interesting. So, I know we have some avid readers in here. How many times have you read in a book where it says something started on the 2nd month, on the 17th day, blah, blah, blah? Do you ever read books that say things like that? Don't they usually just give a date? I mean, we just give dates, right? But this says that the flood started in the 2nd month on the 17th day. the flood. Then it says, on the 7th month, on the 17th day, the ark rested on Mount Ararat. Okay, so being the nerd that I am, and being a little proficient in Excel, anybody here know a lot about Excel? Or is it just me? Am I the only nerd here? So, in Excel, there's a feature where you can put a date in a cell. Then you put another date in another cell. You can subtract one from the other, and it will tell you how many days that is. So, again, being the nerd that I am, I plug in these dates in my Excel spreadsheet. Of course, I put in 2025, but so I put in 2/17/2025, then I put in 7/17/2025. I subtracted 2. Guess what I get? 150 days. Exactly what the scripture says. That the floods lasted 150 days. I just find that interesting. I mean, I'm probably the only one, but I think it points out that over and over and over and over again, Scripture proves itself. I mean, it just, things that occurred, and we'll talk about this, things that occurred were signs of the coming Christ. I just think Scripture proves itself over and over again. So,
on that line, the Scriptures tell us that the ark was 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, or 135 meters long, 23 meters wide, and 14 meters high. Modern shipbuilders today use those proportions, not exactly, some ships are big, some are small, but shipbuilders use those proportions today to build ships.
wow. And you know, in Noah's time, Noah didn't really understand that ark, the reason that ark floated was because it was displacing or moving more weight in water than it weighed. If that makes any sense. Submariner back there, submariners, they understand that stuff. So that's how it floated, and I did not know that shipbuilders still use it. Yes.
Verse 11, and it says, when the dove returned to him in the evening, there was in its beak was a freshly plucked almond leaf. And my Bible has an exclamation mark after that.
Oh, really?
It's like, I mean, I think it's like he kept, he's sending them, and, when is this water going to go down? I don't know, that's just my thoughts.
It wasn't until January that the earth dried up, so according to verse 13.
Oh, yeah. That was just 150 days.
Till it came to rain.
It started receding. It was 150 days. Yeah. As Terry pointed out, it's 375 days total that there was water on the earth from the flood. Okay? So, 40 days, Noah sends out this, after the water started receding, Noah sent out this raven. Raven doesn't come back. It's just flying around. I don't really know. I guess the mountaintops were exposed, so he had a place to roost or whatever, but he didn't come back. And then Noah sends out a dove. My dad, my dad would not let me hunt doves because he thought there was something special about doves. But anyway, why do you think he sent out a dove? Why not another raven or something else?
Because doves are ground dwellers. He wanted to know the ground was dry.
That's right. So my wife has a bird feeder in the backyard. And I'll sit there and watch these birds. And we have these doves. And by the way, doves mate for life. You didn't know that. So we have these doves, and usually it's a couple. And they'll be walking around on the ground. They never get up on the bird feeder, or very rarely. Very rarely do they. I've seen it one time, the whole time we've lived there. They're always on the ground. They feed on the ground. I think they roost in trees. When I was a kid, I would notice doves a lot. They seem to like cedar trees for some reason. They would be underneath the cedar trees. I have no idea why. But anyway, doves feed and everything on the ground. So he sends out this dove because if it comes back, he knows the ground's not dry and they can't find any place to feed or anything. So he sends it out again, and it comes back with an olive leaf. I don't know the significance of the olive leaf, but I do know the significance of the dove coming back with that, and he knew that the ground was dry.
Isn't that interesting that the dove could have just stayed where the ground was, but it's like he needed to let Noah know that the ground was there, and he brought a leaf. Evidently, trees had grown already, and he could take a leaf off and let Noah know, because Noah sent it out again and it would come back.
Yeah.
Did he wait 7 more days?
Yes. 7 more days. So, on the 601st year of Noah's life, the first month, the water had dried up. Noah left the ark in the second month on the 27th day, as God had told him. Then Noah built an altar, offered a burnt offering to God. God promises never to send a flood to destroy the earth again. And what does he do? How does he signify that covenant? Rainbow. How many people can keep from smiling when you see a rainbow? I mean, every time I see a rainbow, the first thing that comes to my mind is, there's God's promise. And they're beautiful, right? They're beautiful rainbows. So every now and then you can see the whole arc. It's very rare, but every now and then you can see the whole arc of the rainbow. And it's just great to know that God keeps his promises.
I think it's interesting that the aroma of the altar, it says, when God smelled the pleasing aroma, that's, when he made his promise.
Yes. And
What's pleasing to him might not be pleasing to us in terms of that aroma.
yeah.
I cannot imagine that the smell of the burning birds was sweet, or,
Yeah, I think
like we might think of a rose or something like that.
I think that's hard for us to understand. That it says it was sweet, but I think it's sweetened by the very act.
Right, that's what might make it the pleasing aroma, because Noah did this.
Yes, and we
It would have been clean after all that water.
yeah.
No sin on the earth because he destroyed it.
No sin left on the earth. But that didn't last too long, did it? Sin came back. Sin certainly came back. So we're talking about promises. So what are the promises that are connected with this? God promised he was going to send a flood. He certainly sent a flood. Noah and his sons and wives would be saved. Never again will God send a flood to destroy the earth. And the rainbow signifies that covenant. I was going to play a little devil's advocate with you here this morning, but I've kind of run out of time. I was going to ask you, do you really believe this happened? And I was going to kind of make fun. Do you really believe that, there's this boat out there and all these animals line up and come in the boat and they stay in that boat for 375 days. Isn't that kind of silly? Because there are people that think that's just stupid. That's impossible. And they use logic, what they think is logic to reach that conclusion. But isn't it, I mean, to me, that's really discounting the power of God, isn't it? I mean, I can't imagine that not angering God. Yes, Don.
Can you imagine what the people that ridiculed Noah while he was building that ark, and then when the rains came, and they were all outside the ark?
You suppose they were begging Noah to let them in?
I bet it wasn't ridicule, I bet it wasn't stupid.
I bet they were pleading and begging for Noah to let them in. Of course, Noah was closed up in the ark. So, yes, Al.
I've heard that at high elevations, they found fossils of sea creatures. And they assumed they wouldn't get up there any other way unless there had been a flood. So at 20,000 feet, you're finding fossils of sea creatures. How'd they get there?
Yeah, and I'm going to elaborate on that in just a second. A little bit.
So we see earthquakes, we see floods, and we think, wow, this was a total cleansing of the earth from top to bottom. And the earth changes. The waters come out from underneath, and it moved the soil, brought the mountains down, it made new mountains. Anything that was walking on it didn't have a chance to go far. I mean, it was this whole world. I mean, think about this whole world. The water coming from the whole ground moved and changed at one time, let alone what's going on with the flood. I mean, there was nothing that wasn't being touched and changed.
Yeah. So that's right. And there are archaeologists now who are looking at, as Al said, the species that are found on top of mountains. There are archaeologists that are saying that part of the reason that carbon dating doesn't work is because of the flood. There's not a lot, but there's a few. Yes.
So in one part of my life, I worked on drilling rigs in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. We're talking 30, 40 miles out. You could not see land anywhere. I have personally seen wood come across up from the bottom of the well that was 2 miles deep. You tell me there wasn't a flood.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all believe there was a flood. We all believe the story of Noah. We have faith that occurred. And I encourage you to be thinking about faith and the fact that faith is beyond just believing that God exists. So, next week we'll be talking about Abraham, and we're going to see a lot of, we're going to see some fault, that Abraham was not perfect, and we're going to see some real faith in Abraham. If we get to Abraham and Isaac next week. We may not get that far, but I hope we do. So y'all have a good week. Thank you so much for helping me last the whole time. I wouldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
See how long it
Right, exactly. If they're honest. If they're honest.
And typically, people are really open to the, you know, like, that's not just a magical story. So, there's lots of different things because I feel lost in social media. Where somebody got a consent
All right.
which is nice.
It is nice.
Large tournaments.
I think there is a movement for the league in the world. I agree. Thank you.